Welcome to our first concert on Onstage Podcast. We have special Nathalie Matthys, who's a pianist, and Josef Lamell, who is well, we will just let him introduce himself. Hello, Joseph.
Hi, Josef Lamell. I'm a clarinetist, um, born in the States, but half Austrian. And so we're coming to you now from Vienna.
We sure are.
Yeah, the 8th district of Vienna.
Which is called Josefstadt.
Yes.
Which, I mean, it's his name.
I share a name
city.
with our neighborhood.
So we were like, we just have to go live here now.
Welcome back to the Onstage Podcast. We're so looking forward to this concert. And Joseph, so whatever made you want to get into music?
Oh, I guess every musician gets asked this, and it's never, sometimes it's an easy question, but, well, I have a bit of a musical family. Not too many professionals, but music's always been close to our hearts. And I think when I was 8 or 9, there was a clarinet under the Christmas tree. It was a not so subtle cue. And ever since, I've been practicing clarinet.
So why did you take up your mode of instrument? Why not the drums or the guitar? Or why didn't you become like a tenor or something?
Well, actually,
He keeps asking himself that question.
yes, no, it's true. No, clarinet is a great instrument. Before I was gifted this clarinet, my dad tried to teach me some piano because he's a talented pianist, not professional, but talented. And they also tried to get me into flute because I remember liking the high notes at a concert. And my dad got me a flute, and I couldn't get a sound out of it. And I got really dizzy from blowing and decided I didn't like the flute anymore. And so then, next year, I think, the clarinet arrived, and it was sort of a process of elimination. And I stuck with that through middle school bands, high school band orchestra, youth orchestra, that kind of thing. And I think that's the the history.
That's wonderful. How was your trip? I believe you were in.
Just now?
Sorry, where were
We
you?
were in Los Angeles
Where were
for the
you?
holidays.
Yeah.
You were in LA. Wow.
Yes.
Which is why we are still, it seems like you're
Because
moderately okay. I am.
Great.
My biological clock is all over the place and not great at the moment. We'll see how we're doing over the course of the evening.
that's awesome.
Yeah, but LA was.
Yeah, it's so good to see you too. We were planning this since August, I think, right, Nathalie?
Yes, and it was like we wanted to do it in August, but then August is always, or like summer is always a weird moment to plan something because there's like unexpected weddings coming up. Well, the weddings aren't unexpected, but getting asked as a musician is
Sometimes they're unexpected.
yeah. And then there's like all these workshops that are going on, but then also you want to travel or whatever. And I've noticed that planning something in summer is always tricky. So that's why we did this, or we are doing this right now, which I think is kind of nice. It's like a nice entry into the new year. Maybe a bit our New Year's wishes and so for everyone. And so in that spirit, I have a premiere for you, Chris. No one has ever heard what you're about to hear. So this is exciting. I hope.
Well, you wrote this song specifically for me, or are you just practicing a song you wrote? And I could be the first recipient of listening to it.
You are the first recipient of listening to it. I wrote it for Joseph last year. And I never got to the point that I had enough time to actually like practice it and then record it. So this was a perfect time, and also with all New Year's resolutions and all that stuff, like a perfect time to finally get it ready. And so I wrote a song for Joseph, and it's aptly called "Song for You" because I'm not the most original in my title. But
I really appreciate that. I feel honored.
yeah, I hope you like it. So here's a
Cool.
very first.
I'll go join the audience and see you soon.
Days go by, they're all alike. We're locked inside and feel the grind. Yeah, I can't help but to smile. It seems that since the day we met, no matter what the world is facing, we just fell in the step. I just wanted to say how wonderful I think you are. It's cheesy, but it's true. I love you so I figured I had to try and write a song for you. Finding balance in extremes, impossible for many, but somehow we greet it with ease. I never felt so much before. We're perfect just for who we are. No need to pretend for more. I just wanted to say how wonderful I think you are. It's cheesy, but it's true. I love you so I figured I had to try and write a song for you.
Oh,
Oh, you're so sweet.
song for you. Wow, I love it. How long did it take you to write that?
The initial thing, 2 days, and then kind of working it out a little bit with the interludes. That just happened a long time after. So I only did that in September, I think, last September. And that also didn't take super long, but then writing the song out and making sure that there's a score available. I did not play from a score right now, but I will make sure that every song that I write, that the score, the lead sheet is available on my Patreon page for any patron who wants to access them. So that's why I wrote it out. But so yeah, in say not so long, but I'm noticing that for me, my songwriting, this is only the third song I've ever written completely solo. And like getting the inspiration for a song, that takes time for me. But once the inspiration is there, it actually goes pretty fast. And I just kind of start looking for a color or a sound, and then I riff off of that. And I just liked the fact that this was something constant. I just liked the sound. And then I changed the basses. I was like, I like that. And then I was like, oh, maybe I can make this a spicy chord. And so I went, and I was like, ooh. So that's kind of how I have no cool method. I'm not that, maybe I should sell it differently, but the truth is, I don't have a cool method. I just trust my ears and see what comes out.
Natalie, do you write the lyrics first or the music first or both?
It kind of, yeah, it goes simultaneously. With this one, I started with that chord and kind of found a melody, and like the words came quite naturally. But like I have one other song that's called Picture Frame. For that one, it was definitely first the music, and then the words came after. Also, because that has many different verses, and so it just took me a bit longer to get it ready. But for this one, I wanted it short and sweet, and I think with 2 verses, that's exactly what that is, short and sweet. So
It
yeah.
was very beautiful. It's as beautiful as that one you sang with your father on the piano, the one I liked so much.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. Well, we have a couple of those, but you mean the Portuguese one, right? Well, there's also many of those, but and I shouldn't say Portuguese. I should say Brazilian because it's Brazilian. But yeah, that was really fun. That's the only disadvantage I would say of living in Vienna is that it's a bit harder to now do some collaborations with my family as they are all living in Belgium, and then I'm over here. That's quite a long gap to bridge for a short recording
Yeah.
session. But well, I feel like ever since coming here, uh, I've been trying to find a new balance because the thing was with the pandemic, everything shut down. I mean, I don't have to tell anyone that we all remember very well. But because of that, a lot of time freed up, and so it was easier to post stuff like on YouTube and be very regular about it. But then once life kind of starting up again, and now being here and being self-employed and really standing in for my income and teaching, but also doing concerts, and I was really struggling in the last year, I would say, to find a new rhythm. But I think I'll be able to get one. I have like a better plan in my head now. Maybe that's the New Year resolution. I don't know. Kicking in, but yeah. So I hope that I can get back to a more regular posting thing.
So, besides that song that you started writing and finished, I think in September, what other music and songs have you written? What's this Vocalise and Toccata one about?
Oh, well, that is not written by me. That's written by my dad, and that's so it's a 2-part piece, beginning with a vocalise and then ending with a toccata. And a vocalise is usually instrumental, or it could be written for voice and usually piano accompaniment. And that is also how this one started. So this vocalise was commissioned by a classical singer that my dad knew, and then he made basically very like a lot of different instrumentations of it because many people liked the melody so much, and they kept asking, "Oh, can you write it for flute or can you write it for cello?" And so he did a bunch of those arrangements of his own piece, and he was like, "Well, while I'm at it, I should do a piano solo version too." And a little bit later, he got this idea of the toccata, and he liked having the big contrast between something slow and something fast. And this particular piece is also quite like dear to me because right before I went to study in the US, where I also met Joseph, who you will see in just a little bit again, I did a fundraising event because I didn't have enough money to pay for my tuition in the school. And so I applied to many scholarships, but of course you never know if you get the scholarship until it's basically very tight deadline or too late. So I figured I should just do a fundraising. And I had never done anything like that before. And that was really very stressful, but also really awesome. Because when you step out of your comfort zone that far, it's like a lot of good things seem to fall into place. It's very, very odd. I don't know if you know that feeling, but like the second you're kind of out of your comfort zone, you're like in the state of almost, you're like petrified, but at the same time also like excited. And this combination always seems to end up in a good way. And if it doesn't seem like it's good at first, in the end, it always turns out that it was very good. I don't know. That's like my um, experience with that. And so this fundraising was no different. It was a lot of extra work and a lot of like, oh my God, what am I doing? But at the same time, then once the event was there and I was on stage doing like half of the program completely classical and then half of the program completely jazz, it was so much fun. And I had the most awesome group of people around me. Like my family was there to support me, but I also at that time was lead singer of a jazz band, and they all came to play on this fundraising event, which was amazing. I'm still so grateful that they did that. And so when I opened this fundraising program, I started with the Vocalise and Toccata. And so I thought it's kind of nice to add it to this little concert as well. So, but this is not written by me, it's written by my dad. Important thing. His name is Mark, and I'm Nathalie, so the N Matthys and then M Matthys, it's easy to overlook. Joseph said that too. When I was sending you the program, he's like, that looks odd, seeing N and M. But yeah, let's see how it sounds. second part to this. So hold on.
Very nice. Such a
There you go.
talented musician you are.
Yes,
Excellent.
thank you. But as you can see, super different characters to the music, which I think is very fun. Also for an audience that is so versatile, I always like that. And I don't know, maybe in the harmonies, you could kind of sense that my dad isn't just the normal classical composer. He's very, very heavily influenced by jazz and is basically now more of a jazz pianist and composer than a classical pianist and composer, which was his original um, uh, education. That's the word. And hey, here's
Hi
Hey,
again.
Joseph.
Joseph.
Yes.
I took off the black sweater too, so I could just vanish into the piano.
I like that.
I know now I would have worn my sweater that
Trying
has
to.
like the jailbird type thing on it too.
Next time we'll send a memo around so that we're
Yeah.
all matching.
And you should wear a hat because that's a very summery look.
Keep the hat. Yeah, we're all trying. We all have a bit of summer in our outfits.
Yes.
Joseph, are
Very
you
nice.
very fashionable? Because you can have like the Calvin Klein, it'd be like Joseph Lamell clothes.
Oh yeah, maybe eventually, but I wouldn't consider myself a fashionable. Since moving to Europe, I've been trying to, I don't know, keep up at some very minimum level with, let's say, the average European male, which involves wearing scarves more and things like that. But I'm just trying to stay above water. There's no real
So
fashion.
you're from LA. Did you meet Natalie in LA, or did you meet her? How did you two meet online?
Well, I did. I lived in LA for a year after my undergrad, but I actually grew up in Houston, Texas. Um, and my dad still lives there. So I was born in Houston, grew up in Houston, did my undergraduate there. I moved to LA because I have some family there. We were visiting the same family over the holidays, so that's why we were there. But I freelanced for a year and studied privately some more in LA. And then I went to Bloomington, Indiana for a master's degree at Indiana University, which is a very large and well-renowned music school in the States, also internationally. And in the second year of my master's, Nathalie came on a Fulbright for a year. And so we met in Bloomington at Indiana University, the so-called Jacobs School of Music. And then I followed her back to Belgium.
And then I kind of semi-followed him, although this was a joint decision to move to Vienna. So here we are now.
You guys must have been
Well,
really
it
in
is.
love to
It
the.
It's also different if you're only there for 3 weeks as opposed to a full year. That already changes the dynamic, but it is true. We it hit it off very well from the beginning,
Yeah, and it helped that I always had the intention of coming here to Vienna. And so for me, moving with her to Belgium was kind of an intermediate step in the direction that I was already planning to go. And it worked out extra well that she also wasn't, let's say, fully satisfied staying in Belgium and wanted to also move somewhere where she felt more, I don't know, maybe musically challenged or inspired.
yeah, and also a bit more comfortable to be self-employed because Belgium is insane, a great country. We have all the facilities needed and whatnot. I mean, you're very well taken care of, but starting your own business or being self-employed is very hard. You better make sure that you have a solid um, budget that you can use in the first years because you're for sure gonna like yeah struggle a bit in the beginning. And then here in Vienna, it was relatively easy. I wouldn't say it's easy, but it's you feel friendly and um, welcomed in this community.
Especially as a musician,
Yeah,
I think.
that is something that I think is the most important reason why I wanted to be living somewhere else. And then the capital of classical music, which is Vienna, is when you're now on the street and you're meeting strangers and they happen to ask the questions of, oh, what do you do? And you say, I'm a musician. Their first response is usually, wie schön, which means, oh, how beautiful, or it's something like that. Whereas in Belgium or in many different countries, when you say you're a musician, then the immediate second question is, so what do you do? And I'm like, I'm a musician. But like the penny doesn't drop that would be your actual profession. Or people assume that, I don't know, you're super poor or you're living off of someone else's money. I don't know. There's always like a negative bias towards it. Whereas here, it's really refreshing to feel so welcome as an artist. So yeah, we love it here, and we fully intend to stay a little while at least, and we'll see how it
Joseph,
goes.
did you have any trepidation about moving?
Oh, a little bit, maybe the normal trepidation about any major change, but not really overall, to be honest. I mean, I'd been to Vienna before, and um, my dad's family is from here. So, well, it's interesting. I don't really know, I didn't know that side of the family that well because they've always kind of been here, and the connection across the ocean had kind of, it's not that easy to stay in close contact but there is a very large network of, it turns out, very warm people here who I'm related to, and this kind of thing. So, having been here before, met a few people, seen, it's just a very beautiful city, very, in a way, easy to live in. Um, not too much trepidation, to be honest. Excitement and that
Well,
kind
being in Vienna, Austria, did you meet Arnold Schwarzenegger? He's from Austria.
of. No,
We couldn't be on the
we need to go back to LA if we want to meet him.
It'd be-
Yeah, but it's true. Between spending the holidays in LA and coming back to Vienna, we have some things in common. But
Did you pick up the language at all? German and Dutch?
yeah,
Except for
Dutch not so much. Of course, Dutch is her mother tongue, or Flemish is the
yeah.
maybe the dialect. Dialect is almost too strong of a word. It's really the same language in most ways to Dutch. So I picked up a very tiny amount of Flemish.
Very tiny.
Also because Flemish
Heel
/
goed.
Dutch and German have a lot in. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. No, there's a lot in common between German and Dutch. And, as I said, I was already planning to come here and feeling like learning German would be hard enough without a bunch of close cognates in another language that I don't know very well, sort of competing. I don't know. So German is coming along. We've been here a bit more than a year, and the German has certainly gotten a lot easier and a lot better in that time. There's a long way to go still, but yeah, it's interesting for me coming from the States, where basically most people are monolingual, and if you're bilingual, it's like, wow. And then Nathalie just speaks 4 languages as a matter of course, and it's really it's completely a different culture around different languages and cultures sort of colliding with each other in close proximity over here. It's really stimulating, I think.
So I take it you learn it from the townsfolk, or does Natalie teach it? Or do you get it from like Babbel apps like Rosetta Stone, or a mixture of both?
Well, before I moved here, I was trying to do Duolingo and this kind of thing, and we had some old German textbooks lying around the house that I tried to get through. But after moving here, I kind of found the Duolingo, maybe the word would be incredibly simplistic and unuseful. So I let that go pretty quickly. I took a couple of German courses here. There are a number of language schools that offer very nice both evening courses or kind of more intensive courses. And so I did a couple of those, which were very helpful. And I'm also enrolled in a university here. I'm doing a second master's in clarinet. And through that, I'm exposed to a lot of German, and it helps a lot to meet people, to be in school. It's really, I think, one of the best ways to make connections. And yeah, so German is gradually coming along through that. Nathalie's German is, I think, kind of basically at a higher level than mine, partially because of the Flemish help, would you say? I mean, a lot of the vocabulary from Flemish is pretty similar to the German vocabulary.
That's true, but I did languages in high school, and so I had German lessons in the last 3 years of high school. But even before that, my parents really enjoy skiing, and so we went skiing each year in a German-speaking area, whether that was northern Italy or Austria. And so I picked up quite a bit of German there, and then with the additional lessons in high school, a lot of it kind of stuck, even though it was like really at the back of my head. But then once you're surrounded by people speaking this certain language, I also kind of have a language brain, so I pick it up easily. But his grammar, like the rules and everything, is a lot better than mine because I forgot all the rules, but I kind of go by ear, and usually it's fine. But I could not possibly explain to you why you have to use this
Yeah.
article in this, and he can. So in that sense,
Sometimes. Yeah.
yeah.
Well, it's funny because in school, in English classes, they're often teaching you about parts of speech and using particular terms. But I've just read a lot when I was a kid. And so my English was intuitively pretty good, and I never needed any of the conceptualization of the language. And so I just rejected all of it, didn't learn any of it, and continued to do fine with my English speaking and writing and whatever. But now, learning German as a second language, as an adult, I'm learning all those grammatical terms that I rejected as a child, and it's an interesting. I think
It came back to haunt you.
it feels like it's a good thing for my brain. It's really, I don't know.
Well, I know that in Holland,
Challenge.
especially when I was there previously, if you don't know the language, they don't want you to ever speak it again. So like they know whether you're a Dutch speaker or not, especially in German. If you don't say the syntax properly, like if you say "Hoe gaat het," they might say, "Oh, okay, maybe you might be from here." But if you say "Hoe gaat het," then they're like, you know what? Just speak English, okay? I'll be fine. You either know the language or they want you to speak English because in Holland and Belgium, the language I think 95%, and I think Natalie can verify this, is that they all speak English. So whether you learn Dutch or not, you can still speak English, but not like when I was in one of the
Yeah,
places speak French. They really, if you don't get French properly, they will either kick you out of the coffee shop,
yeah,
or like I I remember the girl I was seeing at that point, and I walked into this French restaurant, and he comes up and he says in French, how many or whatever, and I said, oh, two, and he goes, English, come here, you know. So I was like, okay,
yeah.
yeah.
The French are, yeah, they're very proud of their language and culture, and so yeah, definitely way more proud than Belgians are. Uh, Dutch people are very proud of their country, but they have no issue with switching the English at any point. I feel like any Dutch or Flemish speaking person can speak English almost, yeah, as you say, like 95 or 99% of the time. In Belgium, we have three parts. So we have Flemish speaking, French speaking, and then German speaking, which is a very, very small part of the country. The French speaking part is, I think, it has really improved over the last years, but is not as fluent in English as the Flemish speaking part. Um, but here in Austria, they really, really want you to speak German. And they highly appreciate it when you do and when you make an effort. And then they're like, okay, so you come here, then they expect you to, abide by their traditions and their um, way of living, which includes speaking German. And in my mind, that is completely normal. But that also means that for some people, Austrians might be a little unfriendly when you come in and you don't speak the language very well. They're not super forgiving about that.
Well,
Or
it's an interesting mix, I would say. Because
yes, it really depends who you meet. But
Vienna is a very international city, and most of the people here can speak English quite well, certainly in younger generation and in the city. Um, and there's a lot of tourism. So you can come to Vienna without any German at all and have no problems, really no problems at all. But if you want to migrate here, there is also a large international community living here. I mean, we've made probably more Italian friends in the time we're here than Austrian friends. And they have a
That's
whole
true.
sub-society, apparently, where, I mean, one of these Italian friends was going back to Italy, and I met him in a German course. and we were asking him, "Oh, how's your German coming along?" Whatever, and he said, "Actually, I haven't learned any German living here since the German course because all the parties I go to are 100% Italian. All the friends I meet are Italian, and so I think the Viennese realize, well, there are a lot of people who come here, they benefit from all the beautiful things we have, but they don't make the effort to learn German and really integrate. And so they tend to appreciate it if they can tell that you're actually trying to learn German and trying to, even if it's not perfect German, at least in my experience, most of the people I've met have been very happy to accept my bad German. And sometimes they'll speak back to me in English, but if I keep trying in German, they'll, offer gentle corrections sometimes, or just speak in German with me, and it's really been quite nice.
Which I think is really nice, because if you do that with any Belgian or Dutch person, they will just switch to English. And I have that tendency too. I like, oh, I'll help you out and just go for English. But it's actually it makes a lot more sense to just, if this person's trying to speak German or Dutch or whatever, by all means, just answer it in that language.
I mean, it depends. If they're asking how to get to the hospital,
Yeah.
maybe that's not the time.
I mean, everything is relative, but yeah.
Nelly, do you desire Josef to speak to you in
So
a different
speaking of-
language?
Sorry? What?
Do you desire Josef to speak to you in different language, or
Oh, no. No, I like speaking English. This is great.
It's funny because sometimes I try to speak to her in Flemish and she answers me in English. Unless I keep going.
Yeah.
But, my Flemish is embarrassingly bad.
But that's also, it hurts my brain because I'm so used to speaking English with you that then when he speaks Flemish, I get confused.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it
Well,
shouldn't happen because that's my mother tongue. But
sometimes I'm trying to speak Flemish to her because I know she's writing to people in Flemish. And then it's very hard if I'm asking her a question in English and she's trying to think in Flemish or whatever. So I'll try to formulate my question in Flemish or whatever.
yeah, and
But-
then I start answering, but then my brain realizes
It's
it's
me,
him
and she
talking
switches to
Flemish,
English
and
in
so I
any
switch to
case.
English anyway, and it gets very confused.
It's,
So,
it's
Yeah, we just stick to English in the house for now. Maybe at some point we'll go
we
to
practice
German.
some German, yeah. It's good.
But
Yeah.
let's not do this in German. Let's not.
what about music?
Better not.
But I think
So
we
when
should.
you-
we
Yeah.
should- yeah,
have
because
more.
we have
Yep.
more
No,
to
but
come.
when you and Josef want to write a song or a piece together, is there a lot of conflict there?
Well, we haven't really written original music because your background is really fully classical, and
That's true.
when I write music, it's really much more in the jazz indie area. I'm not very comfortable with writing classical music. I don't know if I have to say yet or not. I don't know what the future will bring. But if what we have done is or mainly you've been arranging a lot of stuff, and
Yes.
you'll hear a little bit very soon of that. And I feel like that goes quite well. Like it's an open discussion, and we make decisions, and then sometimes if we play this piece a couple months later, we pick it up again and we realize, oh, maybe it would have been nice to put this here or here. We then do that, and it's a very I would say smooth process.
Yeah, I think we work pretty well together, and that applies to just general rehearsals. I mean, as a duo, yeah, we're probably mainly classical. We both have
Yes.
extensive classical training, blah, blah, blah. But, I do a fair amount of arrangement, like she said. And especially with the arrangements, I'm always very interested in getting a second opinion on decisions that I've made about, I don't know, bringing a violin part over to the clarinet. And, as a clarinetist, I can come up with some really, maybe nerdy is the right word, some strange technical way to, and you can convince yourself that, oh, this is cool. So it's very useful to have someone who'll be honest with me and say, no, no, no. I know you spent a day figuring that out, but it doesn't sound good.
But
So, yeah.
that rarely happens.
Well,
in-
if anything, I'm oversensitive about this tendency. And she encourages me to, no, let it be different than the original, than the violin part or whatever I'm arranging, which is also good. But speaking of which, let's go to the next piece because we still have a fair amount of stuff ready.
Introduce the
We
next.
still have time.
Yeah,
Peace.
I don't know how you're.
Okay,
Yes.
so this is a piece by Franz Schubert. We're talking about Vienna. This is one of Vienna's greatest composers.
He's the man.
A man, yes.
No, he's the man.
The man, okay.
Sorry.
Odd introduction. This is a sonata he wrote in 1824, so by far the oldest bit of music that we have for you today, and actually almost older than the clarinet. Called, well, we know it mainly today as the Arpeggione Sonata. The Arpeggione is sort of an interesting thing. This was like a novelty instrument almost. In the 1820s, well, 1800s, earlier and a bit later, all across Europe, there were very talented instrument makers experimenting. And the arpeggione was a hybrid instrument, kind of like a cello, but with the body of a guitar and frets and more strings than a cello. And one of Schubert's good friends, Vincenz Schutz, anyway, was one of the only people in the world that ever played the arpeggione. And so he was going around trying to promote this instrument, and he needed promotional material, let's say. So he commissioned a sonata from Schubert so that he could go around playing good music on this instrument and tell people, look, it's a cool instrument, you should play it. Well, the arpeggione died out, but this sonata turned out to be such good music that cellists play it all the time. Violists play it too. I know some flute players that have arranged it and played it, bassoon players, and I'm not the only one to arrange it for clarinet, but I did make my own arrangement of this piece called the Arpeggione Sonata. And we have it's a sonata, so 3 movements, but we have selected, instead of saying we'll play the whole sonata, we'll play the first movement of this sonata, and then we have a second movement of another sonata, and a third movement of another sonata. So we kind of have built our own sonata to try and give a quick sampling of different places, languages, and styles and all this.
Yeah, basically a little business card of what we do.
Yes.
This is the build your own sonata, like the BYOB, or BYOS, like build your own sonata.
Yeah.
And that I think really encompasses what we do as a duo. So
This is also the first time we've tried to record something in this apartment since having the grand piano. So I think the balance should be okay. The piano was also tuned yesterday morning,
yes.
a little bit high. So I'm going to take a second to actually seriously tune, and then we'll go right in.
Excellent. Loved it. Beautiful job. Wonderful musicians doing the beautiful
That's
job.
a really challenging, by the way, for any wind player. So good job.
I don't want to talk too much about what makes music hard, but it's true that string players or arpeggione players don't have to breathe, um, and so Schubert didn't really write any places to breathe. So
Well, Schubert had the
So
unfinished
our
symphony as
second
well, so
movement,
yes,
yeah, but it's not the unbreathed symphony.
well, yes.
So our second movement, I mean, of course, Schubert has three movements in his Arpeggione Sonata, as we mentioned, but we thought it might be nice to give you a little taste of what we do. And so we will move on to the second movement of a French sonata written by Francis Poulenc, written in 1962, if I remember correctly, or is it? Yes. And we're in the 60s in France, and Poulenc was supposed to perform this together with the clarinetist that he wrote this for, but unfortunately he died before he could do that. And so the people who premiered it instead were Benny Goodman on clarinet and Leonard Bernstein on piano, which to me, two of some of the finest musicians of their time. And this is a beautiful, beautiful romanza, so a slow, beautiful piece that he wrote in memory of his late friend. What's the first name? Yeah, I know it's Honegger. Arthur Honegger, thank you. Yes.
My French pronunciation is just not there.
Oh,
so
great.
that's why I said it this way, so that she could filter.
well, I like
Yeah. So
I like parts of classical music like Moonlight Sonata Movement 1, but I like the third movement as well, which I saw you playing, and the second movement, it doesn't really do much for me. So I can understand why you take certain movements and do those ones instead.
Well, to be honest, we love these sonatas in their entirety, absolutely. But we thought it just would be great. That's also why the title of our little concert here, it's not necessarily Gershwin. It's not necessarily Schubert or Poulenc or the next composer you'll hear, because that's also what we do. We like to mix things up and do a mixture of very standard repertoire, but then add arrangements that Joseph makes or some cool stuff.
Yes.
So
I need to tune again. This is actually a different clarinet.
Okay.
Excuse me for a moment.
That's the name of this concert, right? Not necessarily Gershwin, I think you said. Cool.
yes.
So, the Romanza from Poulenc's Sonata for Clarinet.
So why did you choose that one? That just you kind of connect it?
There is
Do
a
you
next
connect
part,
to it?
but
Sorry, hold on.
we're not playing it.
Yeah.
Why did you choose that one? Is it because you connect to it spiritually, physically?
Yeah, well,
So this is part of the standard clarinet repertoire. But the reason we also included it in the concert today is because we played this on our very first concert in Belgium, on our debut as a duo. This was part of the program.
Yeah.
And also, it ain't necessarily so, which we'll come back to later. Um, but that's why we definitely wanted to include this. And for me personally, I love playing this sonata. I think it's so beautiful. And also the outer movements are very fun and diverse and just wonderful, wonderful melodies and harmonies. I love French music, so I'm always very glad when he says, "Oh, let's do some French music." Then I'm like, "Yes, let's do it." So,
well,
yeah.
It also works. My brain is the type that likes to assemble programs of music that somehow talks to itself or with each other.
Mhm.
This also works on a number of other levels. We were looking for a second movement of a sonata, and this is a second movement of Poulenc's sonata. This is also the movement that Poulenc wrote first, long before he ever thought that this would become a sonata or before he wrote the first and third movements. He wrote this romanza really.
Bless you.
But this is maybe, I think, the most purely inspired part of his sonata that was really in memory of his friend who had passed away. And so I think it also works pretty well on its own. Um, for me, it's also the kind of the emotional core of this sonata, and that's my favorite part. So I was happy to take just this movement, and it worked out well that we had a first movement of Schubert and we have a third movement of a sonata by an Argentine composer named Carlos Guastavino. Not a particularly well-known composer. He wrote this piece around 1970, and he wrote it for one of my teachers, who I studied with for a year in Bloomington, Luis Rossi. He's a South American clarinetist, born in Argentina. Now he lives in Chile. But he was studying at the music school in Buenos Aires when Guastavino was on the composition faculty there. And Guastavino wrote another short piece for clarinet called Tonada y Cueca, Two Dances. And Luis liked that piece so much that the way he told it to me, he followed Guastavino around all the time, bugging him, or whenever he saw him at a concert or something, would say, "Hey, can you write a piece for me? Write another piece." And it's good that he did, because this is, I think, one of the most underrated clarinet sonatas out there. It's excellent music, and let's go right into the third movement of it. I worked on this with Luis in Bloomington, and I really fell in love with Guastavino's music and this sonata in particular. So I hope you'll enjoy it.
And now, why would we pair Austrian and Argentinian music other than the fact that we like the music? Is because Guastavino is actually called the Schubert of the Pampas, because he wrote an extensive amount of songs, just like Franz Schubert did. And all these songs are equally beautiful, completely different in style, obviously. But yeah, I mean, you thought that would be a great pairing, and I could only agree.
You agreed, yeah.
Yeah.
That's the key part.
Yes.
When she agreed.
So we'll be performing this in a house concert here in Vienna with some of his extensive family members. Not extensive, I'm sorry. And then only a couple days later, like for open public here in Vienna. So we're very much looking forward to that. And we have one more for you, and I'm sorry that I'm a little bit pushy on pushing the music, but it's for our dear neighbors, because a grand piano in a pure concrete building, that's quite loud, and so we don't want to disturb them too much. But we can finish with also a piece that we performed in our very, very first debut concert in 2021. And it's a well-known little aria.
That's good.
So yeah, let's see.
Enough talk.
Yes, sir.
As some of the great musicians have said, I have nothing to say.
Yes, the music will speak for itself.
So that was your Gershwin arranged by Josef Heifetz, Josef Lamell, who was you. It ain't necessarily so.
It's a long title, but yeah,
It's extremely long.
it's a Gershwin number, of course. It ain't necessarily so. Jascha Heifetz, the great violinist, loved Gershwin's music and was always asking Gershwin to write something for him, but then Gershwin passed away before he got around to it, I guess. And so then Heifetz started arranging many, many of Gershwin's tunes for violin and piano or something like that, including this. And then I took Heifetz's arrangement because it's very good. And I figured out a way to make it work on clarinet. So that's what that that's why it's so many names.
Gershwin Heifetz Lamell.
Yeah.
Well, if I was actually in your little room right there, I would be drinking Pinot Grigio, because it looks like all
Perfect.
these songs you mentioned could all be paired with either Pinot Grigio or Cabernet or.
Hey, we're up for it. We were already thinking of doing like some food and music pairing
Wine
or
pairings,
wine and
yeah.
music pairing. So if you have any suggestions, by all means,
Pinot Grigio.
let us know.
Yeah. Maybe a flight with a flight of music. Why not? Any excuse to drink and listen to music, I think, should be a pretty easy sell.
So my Indians interpret. My under the impression, Joseph, that you know how to play the violin as well.
No, I think probably if I could play violin, I would play these pieces on violin, because then I wouldn't have to go through the work and the process of arranging them. She mentioned this earlier when you asked me about which instruments I made my way to or through on the way to clarinet. I think, well, part of me wishes that I were a pianist or maybe a violinist, because they have such a wealth of repertoire from all the great composers. I mean, you can, as a violinist, if you can find a nice quartet to sit down with, you can have a glass of Pinot and just a stack of masterpiece string quartets and just go all night reading through stuff. And I would love to do that, but unfortunately, that doesn't really exist for the clarinet. And so I have started trying to fix that a little bit, I suppose. Of course, piano is the same thing. You know, you can name practically any great composer and sit down at the piano and play, you know, half of what they wrote at least, probably. But, you know, as a clarinetist, it's a little more limited. We have some really great works from great composers, but it's not such a wide and deep body of repertoire. So,
Which also makes sense since the clarinet is a bit younger than
Yes,
piano
that's
and
true.
violin. That definitely plays a role in
Yep.
it.
Yeah, certainly.
And it's even more so for saxophone, for example, that was only invented like last century. So, yeah, all these things play a part. And so, what we try to do with our duo is really make it as well, not as eclectic as possible, but like really have a mix of this traditional clarinet repertoire and then mix it with some new, fresh arrangements. And yeah, that's what we really love to do. And it seems like the audience that we've played for already that they enjoy it too.
So far, people seem to like it.
So thanks so much for inviting us and
Yes,
letting us
and for the opportunity.
yeah,
It's
letting
wonderful.
us perform for you. This is really, really nice. And especially on the piano now.
Yes, now
I'm
it's been heard.
very, very happy that this is here. So yeah.
Very welcome. I was pleasantly happy when you chose to want to do a concert for us, because we were planning to have one Christmas concert was, you know, sopranos and tenors and everything, but they all like said nope, nope, nope. But
Oh,
I'm
well.
so glad that
Well,
you.
it's a bit scary. I mean, to do like the recording and everything. I'm a very, very stressful person, and so already yesterday evening I was like, okay, so we have to make sure that everything works. And with technology, usually it works, but sometimes the day you really need it to work, it doesn't do it. So that's why we figured to do a little backup with our actual mics and stuff.
Don't let the technology hear you. honey.
Yes, yes. Sorry, I'll shut up now.
I have a
Because
degree
Austria's-
also in computer science, and what it taught me was,
Austria's
you know,
like
to be
6
very
years ahead.
gentle with the computer. Yeah, they have a lot of tech here in Austria. It's kind of interesting, but yeah, I think they have maybe three major fields here. It's music. Some elements of tech are very advanced, and psychology. There are a ton of psychologists per capita here.
I mean, what do you do otherwise with all those artists? Well,
I don't know. It's the home of Sigmund Freud, so I guess.
What about doing arrangements of cover songs? Like, there's a few great ones out there. The cover song of Britney Spears, or a cover song of, like, I don't know if you ever heard of Imagine Dragons, but there's a pretty good few songs in there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure,
Easy
of
to
course.
arrange.
Well, that's the thing, right? We're really established as a classical.
Well, you know, I'm trying to mix in some quote unquote fun things. To I did one last year of the Spider-Man song that she helped me take from ear from like an old cartoon.
You should have heard the chord that you first put in. It was like ah. But we
Well,
figured
you know,
it out. We
it's one of
figured it
these kind of comic intros, and it seemed to me that almost any chord, the more shocking, the better in that spot. And so I found the most shocking chord I possibly could.
It was a bit too shocking.
And then I brought my work to her because she's a much better harmonist than I am. And she rejected, unequivocally rejected that chord. So. But yeah, it's a cool thought, because I've been looking for things that might be fun to do with the clarinet and piano, or you know, you can record yourself. I've done a few where I record myself 4 times and play some weird clarinet quartet arrangement or something.
Yeah, those are very cool too.
But, yeah, I'm always looking for new things to arrange, whether it's from a classical master or Britney Spears or whatever. It's, you know.
When not, I heard a really good orchestral version of Stairway to Heaven by Led Zeppelin.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So it's possible.
Oh,
It's certainly
it
possible.
definitely is. It requires. It's a very delicate balance, I think, to really make a nice arrangement that honors.
Yeah, it's true. It's easy to make a lame arrangement, you know,
Yeah.
where I just play the melody of whatever, and then people say, "But
Yeah.
there's no beat, man."
Why on
So I'm
clarinets?
sorry, I'm a classical clarinetist. I don't have a beat. But yeah, we try to look for interesting ways.
Yes.
Do you have a roster for this year? Like, are you completely booked throughout the whole year, or just do you take it like 1 month at a time?
We have some things booked ahead.
Which is great.
What, 6 or 7 concerts?
I think so. Yeah, January has 2, then February has 2, which we were asked for
Oh, yeah, that's
last
new.
week. So that's very, that'll be very close. Then we have April, we have June, we have 1 in September and 2 in October, 3 in October maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
Wow.
and then
a good number, but room for more, I would say.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, there's like an idea for like somewhere in summer. We just need to find a venue with the cellist, which would be very nice to do. But that we're still figuring that out.
yeah, and a lot of these concerts are with completely different programs.
Yeah,
And
lots of practicing for
yeah,
me.
it takes a lot of preparation to try to do justice to, you know, the composer, to the audience, all this stuff. So,
Yeah.
but at the same time, it's so fun to work on as much music as possible.
Yeah, it's really lovely. I think it's really a privilege to be able to play the music that you want to play and have the freedom to choose your own programs. That's such a luxury, and I'm very grateful that we're in that position that we can do that.
Yeah.
And it's nice that now in our second full year in Vienna that all these concerts are lined up.
We're starting to become
That's great, and so I hope it continues in that streak.
And hopefully a tour,
Really?
you know, across seas or something. I'd love to set up a tour in the States or maybe up to Canada or something. You had a tour maybe set into Argentina.
But then it was very sad because the guy who wanted to do it unexpectedly died.
Yeah.
But
yeah, we're looking for more concerts, more tours all the time.
Mm-hmm.
It's very fun.
Yeah.
Toronto's a good place. There's so many venues to do concerts there. Give me a free
Sounds
VIP.
good.
You know someone?
Ha 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 ha. This is great. You guys are so talented. I'm so happy I was able to do this, and I'm so happy that you set
We're,
it up. And
yeah, it was really our pleasure. Thank you so much for having us. This is great
you're
fun.
very welcome.